Evening, everybody. I'm just waiting for. I see a few people are still joining, so I'm just going to wait for a few minutes to make sure everybody joins. And you're very welcome to this evening's webinar with our resident man who knows everything, Kieran McHugh. And tonight we're talking about weeds, how to identify them and what to do with them. And Kieran has very kindly put together a whole PowerPoint for us, which is brilliant. So just a wee bit of housekeeping. If you feel free to put some chat in the chat box, and if you're new to Zoom, it'll be one of the wee boxes on the bottom of your screen. And if you have a question at all, just use the Q&A button. So I think that's probably everybody on now. So weeds are plants growing where we don't want them. So it's kind of any plant at all that's grown in the wrong place, isn't that right, Kieran?
Yeah. Roses can be weeds if you've got them in the middle of your vegetable patch.
Surely. So do you want to start then and kick off? I think the first slide you have is for ground elder.
Yeah, well, ground elder, it's one of those weeds that you turn your back on it and your bed could be full within weeks. You know, it's just so invasive. It has a tendency to invade carrots, parsnips, your parsley, coriander, but any bare ground, really, your ground elder will grow there. And it's one of those weeds that if you leave a little bit of the root in, it will just regrow again. So it's really hard to get it all out. Like I say there, the rhizome fragments remain in the soil. They can cause problems. The seeds from the flowers, it's spread by the wind. So yeah, it is one of those weeds that's once you've got it, it's hard to get rid of it. So the best thing is vigilance. You know, try and get it as soon as you see the seedlings coming up. Really,
sure.
It's possible to dig out them, but like I said, if you leave a little bit of the root in, it tends to just grow again.
And ground elder is something you would see kind of growing along the sides of the roads, Kieran.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like you were saying at the beginning, your weeds. What's one person's weed is another person's treasure, really. You know, it does have a nice. It does look nice in its, on the side of the road, in the bottom of a hedgerow. It does look nice, but it just doesn't look nice in your flower gardens or in your vegetable gardens.
That's right. And of course, if you're, the thing about the weeds is they are, if there are too many of them, they are going to take away light and nutrients and water from, the crops that you're intending to grow as well. Okay, number 2, yarrow.
Yeah, it's another weed that has an extensive rhizome system. It has a lovely upright stem which can reach up to 40 centimeters. The good thing about yarrow is it's one of those weeds that will encourage, pollinators into your garden. But like you say, it has the tendency to invade and just take over, blocks out the sunlight and sucks nutrients from the soil. I've put down there some of the plants that it likes to invade next to: your salsify, your chicory, endive, artichokes. It'll grow next to them and just block them out, really.
Sure.
It doesn't survive, if you give it a good hoe in, that's one of the best ways to get rid of it, really.
Yeah, okay. And I suppose if it's growing in amongst things and it's impossible to hoe, just sort of pull it out or yank it off, or yeah. Okay, yarrow.
I'm saying that weed in the wet, hoe in the dry. So like you're saying, if you pull it out, it gets rid of it.
Yeah, Surely. And that's, it's like, I mean, the hoeing is a brilliant thing, but as you say, you kind of need to do it on a dry day. So when you're cutting off or pulling up the plants, and then the sun or the wind is kind of drying the roots out. So you're getting rid of those, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
So next, hurry bittercress and bittercress.
Yeah, this is one of those plants that can, appear throughout the year. Its seeds can be dispersed by the wind, so they'll go up to 1 meter or even further. Depends. I mean, sometimes just brushing past them and you can flick them even further than the wind can broadcast them. Hand weeding between your vegetables. This is another thing where putting down a good thick layer of mulch in between your vegetables would stop the hairy bittercress coming out, because that blocks out the sunlight. We mentioned a few weeks ago about the compost. It's great if you could put your compost down. So that's why I'm saying there, mulch will help suppress the growth of it.
Sure.
And it helps feed your plants too.
Absolutely. And the thing that, I mean, one of the good things about hairy bittercress is you can actually eat it. It's an edible. Yeah. So you can, it kind of tastes a wee bit like watercress, I think. So, you can pick, obviously, if it's somewhere not just up beside the edge of the road, or where people might have been walking their dogs and stuff, but you can pick off those wee leaves and add them to your salads and things. What have we got next then? Ragwort.
I'm sure that in certain parts of the country, if you have ragwort on your land, you can be prosecuted. So, you have to get rid of it because of its danger to horses and cattle, really. When it dies down, it's very toxic, really, towards them, and poisonous. But it's not so much of a problem in your vegetable patch, because you can see it coming up, and it's easy enough to pull out once you do see it. But the problem is the seeds lay dormant in the ground. This can be up to seven years. Their seeds will be still in the ground. That's where your no dig comes in. You're not, when you start digging, you disturb all these dormant seeds and bring them to the surface. It's a deep rooted weed, so it does take some getting out, really.
Sure, but a ragwort is quite easy to identify, though, because it's usually quite a tall plant as well, isn't it, Kieran?
Yeah. And it normally has them black and yellow ladybirds covering it as well, which are very poisonous as well.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, I said ladybirds. Caterpillars.
Caterpillars. Okay. I reckon my brain there.
Yeah, I do apologise. Yeah.
No, you're okay.
Ladybirds on the brain today, but yeah. I used to see more of them when I was a child. I don't tend to see so much now. I'm trying to think what the moth is, but it's gone. But yeah, they have a lovely black and yellow caterpillar on them.
Sure. And I suppose that is a thing to remember, that every plant is a habitat for something, really, isn't it? So I think it's, if they're in the way and they're stopping you cultivating the things you want to, yes, certainly keep on top of them. But not every part of your whole garden needs to be spotless or weed free either. So next, creeping buttercup. This is I garden in County Armagh, and I suppose our soil is quite heavy and quite damp. So I have no shortage of creeping buttercup at all.
And it's a real pain to get out, isn't it? When you try to pull it, you always leave bits of it left in there. But it's, the best thing I always find, again, is the mulching to get rid of, well, not to get rid of it, but to prevent it in the first place. If you give a good thick mulch, it suppresses it. It stops the sunlight getting to it, and that's the best way to really eradicate it from your garden.
Surely. And I think, again, like when we're talking about mulches and preparing your growing spaces for overwinter, if they're empty, Now is a good time of year to have to use, and I know you're a big advocate of this, Kieran. Leaves, fallen leaves, and being grass clippings and stuff are ideal, aren't they?
Yeah, we was out yesterday, like I said to you, we were just gathering up the leaves. To us, that's, we're doing it for free of charge because we get the leaves. So, they get the labor, we get the leaves.
Fantastic. That's a win-win for everybody.
Yes, yeah.
And I think with the leaves too, you can use, you don't need a leaf blower, you can use a rake, or, if they're on your lawn and you have a lawnmower, you can use it up high, just to collect them as well.
Yeah, and that chops them at the same time, helps them break down.
Yeah.
Using the mower.
Yeah, completely. So moving on now, what have we got? Oh, this is another nightmare. Mare's tail.
Yeah, the bane of my life, this mare's tail. Again, I mean, if you've got it, if you can mulch a bed and leave it, a really thick layer of mulch and leave it, but it could take a couple of seasons to get rid of it. I have heard of people pulling it up, boiling it to make a liquid feed, but I'll be honest, I've never tried it, and I just try and get rid of it. I continuously pull them out, and I come back the next day and there's more of them there. It's just the rhizomes, to just go everywhere. But it is easily recognizable, and you can get rid of it. Don't give up on it.
No, it is. It's just persistence, really, isn't it? You just need to keep pulling it and pulling it. And but as you say, if you turn your back at all, it gets away on you. And it's a pity something like that isn't edible, isn't it? Because it'd have a bit of use. Okay, and the next one we have is shepherd's purse.
Again, this is another one of those seeds that lays dormant in the soil. So once you start digging or cultivating at any point, the seeds come to the surface, and it just spreads its seeds. It has a multitude of seeds, this one does, but it's easily recognizable. They do pull out easily, and if you can just hoe between the vegetables, you'll get rid of it.
Sorry, Karen, is that the one that, sometimes if you brush past and the seeds are ready, they kind of pop?
Yes.
Or they're both like that?
Yeah, like an explosion.
Like an explosion.
Very much like the busy lizzie, the impatiens. It just broadcasts its seeds.
Yeah, really? Gosh. There you go. So you say it's because the shepherd's purse is quite easy to identify, isn't it? And it's not that hard to pull out, really.
No, you can pick it out or just hoe through it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So moving on. Oh, bramble.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is this bramble. You get nice fruit from it, but it just sucks the nutrients out of your ground. And it has an extensive root network, and it'll set up new shoots along where it goes to. As soon as the root goes along and gets to some sunlight, it'll send up a root. So it's a problem, really. But again, it's one of those plants or weeds that attracts wildlife into your garden. The berries and the flowers. The berries are often edible as well. There's not many that I know of that isn't edible. But again, it's a case of pulling it out or digging it out to get rid of it.
Sure, because by bramble, we're really talking about the wild blackberry there, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it is a lovely thing to have in the hedge, as you say, just for wildlife and, for birds and also the bees. It's one of the, it's a big, if you've got proper hedges full of brambles, the flowers are a great source of nectar for honeybees to make honey and stuff. So, but that's the thing, it's trying to keep it in the hedge, keep it contained, and stop it taking over, the whole place that you live, I suppose. So what have we got next? Willow herb.
Yeah, well, I mean, willow herb is another one of those, like you say, in its right place. It has such a beautiful flower on it. It attracts pollinators into your garden. But again, it grows so high, it blocks out the sunlight, takes water and nutrients that we want to keep in.
Sure. Okay. Just as we're going through, I have a wee question here for you, Kieran. Somebody's asking about putting weeds into compost. Would you put any weeds into your compost?
Not if they've got any seeds on at all, no, because I don't want to put any seeds into it, especially anything with the rhizomes as well. I mean, you have these. We'll be coming up to it soon. The bindweed, or it has a lovely white root. You get a little bit of that bindweed into your compost, and it'll spread as soon as you put it out. That's the problem with it. So I would avoid many weeds. Some of them you could still put in, but cut them up and make sure there's no seed heads on them at all.
Sure. So no seed heads and no bits of roots, really. Mm-hmm. I suppose.
I mean, you mentioned before about the green
manure.
Manure. That would be a good idea to do, just to feed your beds again over the winter time. But I'd avoid getting them into your compost bin. But there's nothing stopping you putting them into your green bin that you send to the council, because they have the big composters that get up to a higher heat than your composting bin would. So maybe send them along to them, and that way you're not wasting them and they're not going to a landfill site.
And the high heat would kill the seeds and kill the roots as well, wouldn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, good idea. And I think if you're in doubt about anything at all, send it with your compost bin away with the council. Chickweed. This is another one that's like that I have a lot of, I have to say. And you can eat it as well.
What amazes me with chickweed is you'll have a bed full of it. The birds are not interested. You pull it up, the birds want it. The chickens love it, but if it's growing in your vegetable patch, they're not interested. As soon as you pick it, they want it.
That's right.
Again, it has a lovely flower on it, but it's so invasive, takes over, blocks out the sunlight, sucks up the nutrients and water. So, it's not really wanted. And it grows all year long as well. All through the season it'll grow.
Yeah, it's like bomb-proof really, isn't it? I mean, I suppose the nice thing about chickweed, it's not that hard to remove.
No, and it does come up in clumps when you do pull it.
It does,
but
sure.
Again, it's ideal for adding nutrients into the ground as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, don't because I've made this mistake before. It's been added to our compost with the flowers and the seed heads on, and then it just becomes a much bigger problem. So so if you can get it before it flowers, and then you could use it in your compost, certainly.
Or in your salad, like you said.
Or in your salad, is right. So, and actually, just a good point there that you said, like germination to seed dispersal is very quick, less than 2 months. So you're talking like 8 weeks, aren't you? So it is important to keep on top of it. Now, this was a new one on me actually when I was looking through it. Winter heliotrope.
Yeah, winter heliotrope. It's a nightmare where I live. A complete nightmare. I can't get rid of it. I just don't want to use chemicals on it, but with what we found is we pull it up, you come back the following weekend, it's there again. It has a lovely flower over the winter months. It does look really nice, but it just takes over. It is so invasive. We've just hoed it off, comes back, hoed it off, comes back. But yeah, what can I say about it? It's my pet hate, winter heliotrope. That's why I know so much about it.
It's your nemesis. And
Uh, yeah.
again, it's spread by rhizomes, so it's like spreading underneath.
You only need to leave a little bit of that tiny white root. It's a very distinctive root. It's thicker than the bindweed that we'll come to, but once you see it, you'll know it, and you pull the roots out, and the still comes back. What we've started doing now is we've put the landscaping fabric down and put bark on top, and that's the only way we've managed to eradicate it, really.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's a good tip if you've got a really pernicious weed somewhere. Actually, just on that, there is another question here about couch grass.
Couch grass, yeah. That's another very invasive weed, especially if you've got it near to your lawn. It comes off from your lawn, the couch grass does. And that again has them white roots that I keep mentioning. You pull it up, but you leave a tiny bit of the root in, and you've still got the couch grass coming back again. Again, you just got to pull it out. Mulching is again another good way of getting rid of couch grass.
Sure. Is that because again that's something I have quite a lot of here, and it's kind of in my fruit cage now, so it's quite hard to dig out, you know, around the roots of the fruit bushes and stuff. So just try and keep digging it out and mulching it and keeping the light off it. Is that what you'd recommend?
Yeah, that's the best way. I mean, we do get it. I had a pile of manure, and I had couch grass. Must have been introduced from the pile of manure that we have. So I've just covered it all up with an old carpet just to stop the sunlight getting to it, and that's hopefully going to get rid of that.
Sure. Okay. There'll be some sale on compost and manure this weekend.
Oh.
People mulching like mad. So next
That's the problem with a lot of your farmyard manure. You can introduce weeds into your garden from it, so you have to be very careful where you get it from and make sure it's well rotted, really.
Yeah, sure. Okay, next, bellis.
Yeah, I mean,
Is this the same as a daisy, or?
we use this for bedding out. You know, our winter bedding now we'll be putting bellis in, but it is a nuisance when it comes to your vegetable patch or in your lawn even. But it has a lovely flower. It has its purpose. It brings in the pollinators, and it does look nice. But the trouble is, again, it takes valuable nutrients from your ground and water. But you can dig it out with a fork. Again, mulching will get rid of it. But another way to stop it coming would be to plant your plants closer together. That way you're blocking that out. You're blocking the light from getting to your bellis, because you know it's one of those plants that needs a lot of sunlight.
Sure. And is that related to the common daisy, or is it the same as a common daisy?
Yeah, yes, they're all part of the same family. You have big flowers, you have small flowers, you have different coloured flowers. It is a lovely plant. I do like the bellis, if I'm honest. I mean, I wouldn't get it out of my lawn. I like it in the lawn because it attracts the bees and the pollinators to the garden.
Sure.
But if you were having a golf course or a bowling green, you wouldn't want it in your green.
Sure. There'd be balls bouncing all the wrong way, wouldn't there? I see also that you had taken that image of raw edible plants.
Yes.
So you must be able to eat parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah. The flowers are very nice, very sweet.
Yeah. There you go. I've learned something myself this evening. I'll be cultivating a patch of those. So, so now bindweed. So this is a pernicious weed, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And again, it's one of those that will grow anywhere. But again, the bindweed, it has such a wide variety of different colours. You know, you've got some purple flowering ones, some white flowerings, pink and white. There's such a load of different flowering ones that look nice growing up a hedgerow, but you don't want them in your garden because it chokes. It'll go up, climb up the stems of your plants. It chokes out the sunlight from getting into, you know, that your plants need the sunlight to photosynthesis, but this will block the sunlight out. So it's a bit of a nuisance really in the wrong place. Again, the roots will go along underneath, the rhizomes will grow all under the ground, and then as soon as they see something, you know, a plant, and it's up, climbing up it.
Okay, so that's good to know. So you'd rarely see it sort of growing on its own then. So
it's very rare. It needs something to climb up. It will go along the ground until it catches hold of something, and then it's away up and starts its flowering.
Sure. Okay. So as you said, from a distance, actually, and you don't know what it is, it looks quite pretty, but it's not something you want to encourage in your garden. Certainly not in your vegetable garden.
No.
Yeah.
In its right place, the right surroundings, it's a beautiful plant, but it's so invasive.
Okay. And what have we got next then? Ribwort or plantain?
Yeah, again, these will grow in your lawn as well, which you don't want in your lawn, but you know, they're easy enough to pull out. Again, it's them big seed heads. It looks like a grass seed head on it, but and it has a nice fibrous root system. So in its right place on the side of a riverbank, that it's holding the soil together, you know, it has a great system for doing that. But it is easy enough to pull it out or dig it out. And again, if you blocked out the sunlight from it, planting your plants closer together or putting a mulch down, that'll stop it even coming up.
Sure. I see you have written there too, Kieran, to regularly aerate the soil if it seems to be a problem. How would you do that? Would you just with a garden fork, or would you rotivate it, or how?
It all depends on the size, really. I mean, normally I would just use a fork to just aerate the ground. But you know, if you had a big area, then maybe rotivate it. But then you have got the problem that you may be bringing other weed seeds to the surface. So it's a catch-22 situation, really. But yeah, just aerate the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, let the worms do it for you. That's the best way.
Yeah.
They're the best little aerators going.
That's right. Absolutely. Okay. So actually, just on that, if you would say, see the plantain and lawns and stuff and daisies as well. Would you think mulching a lawn is a good thing because it's feeding your lawn and it's feeding the worms and it's kind of building up nutrients and the health of your soil as well?
The only real, it's not really a mulch as such that I'd put on the lawn. We would have aerated or hollow tined it and put a top dressing of loam on. But that's the only thing really. We wouldn't really mulch the grass because we don't want to block out the sunlight to the grass. You forget that's a little living plant itself.
Sure. So when I mean mulching, I mean kind of mulching your lawn clippings.
Sorry. Yeah.
Leaving them.
Yeah. They're great for the compost bin.
Yeah. But
try and remove the seed heads if you've got them before you mow, and that way you're not going to get them in your grass box. They're easy enough to pull off, these plantain seedlings. They're just easy to pull off.
Yeah, I know they're conveniently on a big stalk, so that helps, doesn't it, Kieran?
Yeah.
Okay. Next is one we'll all recognise, I'm sure, the dandelion.
Yeah, and another one that's hard to dig out. But it's sometimes beneficial, like I've put there. So consider, is it going to be a problem? Again, it's going to take the nutrients and moisture from your ground, but you know, it's a good source of adding nutrients to the ground as well. But it is hard to dig it out because you can get a long stem, you know, 30 centimeters. They could go that long, really. So, you know, maybe consider pulling them off regularly, but you know, it's going to be hard work to dig them out.
Yeah, sure.
They're another one of those plants, you know, when it doesn't show you the flower there, but it has a lovely flower that attracts the pollinators into your garden. So, you know, you've got to weigh up, do you want the pollinators in, or do you want that out of the garden?
Well, that's true. And I suppose if you, I mean, if you can manage it, if you can let it flower, because it's a great early flower for pollinators, and then you know when it starts to produce seed, you pick those off and put them again into your council bin would be the best thing, isn't it?
I don't quote me on this, but I'm sure, I've never eaten them, but I'm sure if there's somebody out there, they could tell us. I'm sure the flower could be edible as well on the dandelion, but
Yeah,
the leaves are edible.
the leaves are edible and quite. I
Yeah,
mean, I suppose
yeah.
the dandelion is related to chicory,
Hmm.
or it's a form of chicory. So you get like, you know, the bitter sort of endive and stuff and salad mixes. Um, so, but it is quite bitter, I suppose. But I suppose it's like anything. If you have a nice enough dressing on it, it's probably really, really good for you too. I mean, anything that's really green like that is just full of very good nutrition, isn't it?
Hmm.
Okay, so just before we move on, we have another question here about docks. So dandelions or docks or dockins. Dockins are another problem weed, aren't they, with a big long root?
Yeah, yeah, but very similar to the dandelion, really, the docks. But again, it's such a big taproot on it. It's so hard to get rid of it. But it's worth persevering. Just dig it out.
Yeah,
You're going to leave a bit of it, and it'll grow again. But at least you've eradicated it for a small time.
surely. And actually, if you do keep trying to dig it out, and even if it breaks off, you're still making it weaker, aren't
Yeah.
you? So, so one of those days you'll dig it out and a whole lot will come, hopefully. Okay, and moving on, the nettle.
Yeah. I mean, they used to say that having a nettle shows that it's a good soil, that you've got rich soil, but it's a weed. It has so many benefits. You know, I've spoke about making the nettle soup. We have an area where we have nettles growing just for that, just to use it for our liquid feed, really. Again, people use it. They make tea with it. They make shampoo with it. You know, it's such a versatile plant. Again, you can pull it out. You can hoe it off, mulch, but you know, it's one of those plants. It sows its seeds as well. The seeds lay dormant in the ground and can come up a year, two later. But it's an excellent food source for butterflies, and you know, even bees will go to it. So
Yeah,
it's one of those plants. Do you love it or do you hate it? I love it.
friend or foe. I know that. I think it's more friend than foe, and actually can I mean, nettle leaves are edible as well. So
Mm.
when you talk about soup, you know, you can actually make nettle soup. That's not just fertilizer. And we've made nettle champ before, you know, and put it through colcannon and stuff. So again, it's really, really good for you nutritionally, you know, kind of tastes a wee bit like spinach. So, um, but you do need gloves when you're out, and it's picking it, and it's important to pick the very young leaves too because they're more tender. But if you when you blanch them in boiling water, you know, it takes the whole sting thing out of them. So nettles for me are in the friend camp.
You know, if you take the time and look at a nettle, you'll see that it has a square stem, very similar to the coleus and your salvia. So it's, they're all part of the same family.
Oh, okay.
But, when you're out there next, just have a look and you'll see it has a square stem, and you'll find the same with your salvias. They all have a square stem. They're all part of the same family. And when you look at the flowers that they have, it's amazing.
My goodness, that's great. I have actually, there's another question that's come in here. This one's from Jeanette, to say, how much would you need to make the feed? Maybe you could just run through that again, Kieran, because nettle feed is a brilliant thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I have it's an old paint bucket, from painting the house, and we just fill that with the leaves. I don't tend to put the stalks in if I can help it with the nettle. I just use the leaves and then fill the bucket up and then fill it full of water. I tend to cover it because of the smell and leave it for about 3 weeks. And there you have it. I've just lost my screen. I do apologise.
That's okay. Don't you worry.
That's it. I'm back again. Yeah, sieve it, and mix it. I normally do 1 part nettle concentrate to 10 parts water, and it's a great liquid feed. I've never bought a liquid feed, if I'm honest. I've always used either the nettle or the comfrey that we have growing. A lot of people can get, if you live close to the coast, they can get seaweed and make it the same way. But another tip is to chop it up, get your garden shears, chop it up, and you find it breaks down quicker that way as well.
Sure.
That's helped.
And yeah, Jeanette said thank you. And as you say, it can smell pretty ripe, can't it? But that's, it's working if it smells fine. Okay, so moving on, weeding methods.
Yeah, well, self-explanatory. You can dig the weeds out, you can rotivate them, that chops them up and lifts them all out, and cutting them, which would be hoeing, hand weeding. Like I said earlier, there's an old saying, weed in the wet, hoe in the dry. If you're hoeing in the wet, chances are they're going to reroot again, so I'd leave that. Flame gun, mulching, cover them with cardboard even, or an old carpet. That's, if we went back to the mare's tail, a lot of people on allotments that have a problem with it, I've seen them covering the bed with old carpets just to stop the sunlight getting to the mare's tail. That's one way of doing it.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned flame gun there as well. Have you used them much, or have you found any that are better than others?
I've only ever used it once. We've got one, but if I'm honest, I would use it on pathways, in between the cracks in the pathways on some of the weeds. But I like the old fashioned with a hoe getting in there, really.
Sure.
And it's better for the environment as well.
Well, I suppose that's true, and you're not having to buy, because usually you have to buy the wee gas canisters or something. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. What have we got next? Okay, so consider whether the weed really is a weed or whether it's an alternative benefit if you allow it to continue to grow. So that's just recapping on all the positives. If you want to just run through that again, Kieran.
Yeah, like we were saying, I mean, I mentioned to you earlier about a buddleia. Buddleias they'll grow in brickwork and they'll damage brickwork, but the butterflies love them. They draw the insect eaters, or the insects into your garden, I should say, which then draws the birds into your garden, and it's a win-win. You get the pollination going, you get the bees growing in there. So, do you want to discourage some of these plants, or do you want to encourage them? Maybe find the right place for them in your garden.
Yeah, I think it is about balance, isn't it? I mean, we, you know, I'm sure we, like everybody else, has like maybe a weedy corner of the garden, and we used to laughingly call it the wildlife area, but actually that's what it is, because you know, all plants, I suppose, are there for a reason, aren't they? Although there are some that are, you and I talked about it before, and very invasive, like the Japanese knotweed, which can be a problem sort of around building sites and buildings
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I don't know that it's as much of a problem in Northern Ireland.
And I think it's a problem everywhere, but it's one of these problems that it wasn't a problem a few years ago, which is why it's a problem now, but people are now addressing it. It's like the giant hogweed as well, you know. You don't tend to see it so much now, but if it is there, it's worth avoiding, because, you know, that'll burn you. I remember somebody once wrote a book about the Japanese knotweed. It was a cookery book, as a way to get rid of it, trying to get people to cook with it, but I wouldn't eat anything from it, that's for sure. They say it's a bit like a rhubarb, but I'll leave that to them.
Yeah, maybe stick to the rhubarb.
Yeah, but I think it's illegal to actually move it now as well. You know, they've made it one of those that's, you know, you can be prosecuted, because you only need a tiny piece of it in the cleat of your boot, and you could spread it elsewhere. So it's one of those. I mean, we would have to get a license to get rid of it, and you have to treble bag it, and it has to be burnt when you do get rid of it.
Sure.
So, yeah, don't prune it, or if you've got it, just report it. Let the professionals get rid of it. Like we were saying earlier, the only thing I've found is glyphosate, you know, stem injecting it to get rid of it. You can spray it with glyphosate, but it has to be done in September, really, for it to have its full effect. And sometimes that just weakens it, and then you have to go back the following year to finish it off.
Sure. As you say, I mean, if you think you have it at all, it's probably a good thing to call in the professionals, isn't it?
Yeah.
Try and get on top of it as quickly as you can. There's another invasive species that was brought in here, Himalayan balsam.
Mm. Beautiful flower. It's a lovely plant, but it's just so invasive, and it just, you know, it blocks out any growth from our natural species. So that's another one that needs to be gotten rid of, really.
It takes over,
Because,
doesn't it? I think it grows along riverbanks and
yeah, I mean, that's the problem with Japanese knotweed as well. It breaks off or snaps off, goes into the water source, and then where it comes out onto a bank, it just grows. But with the Himalayan balsam, that can be spread with the seed as well, whereas the Japanese knotweed, that doesn't tend to spread with its seed, thankfully. It's just the Himalayan balsam.
sure. Um, so has anybody got any more questions at all? There's a lot to take in there, really. There's like a lot of slides and a lot of weeds, Kieran. And thank you very much for the work that you have put in to it again. So is there anything any other burning question that people are needing to know about weeds? I think, as you say, hoeing, and particularly in the summertime, if you can at all, just go for a walk around the garden with the hoe, and wherever you know you see the wee weeds starting to poke up, just, you know, give them very lightly over the top and just let them die like that. And the more you do that, the more you keep on top of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, folks, I think if there are no more questions at all, that's probably it for this evening. We, as before, we're gonna, I can upload this as a slideshow and save it to the YouTube channel, the Live Here, Love Here YouTube channel. So I'll do that, and actually that's where the rest of the webinars are, and Kieran's other videos on composting and making raised beds and thinning out on all of those things. So So no, I think that's all the questions have been answered. So I'd just like to say thanks very much for attending. Thank you very much to Kieran from the Conservation Volunteers, and we'll see you at the next one. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.